Welcome back, everyone, to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin. He's Lincoln. A lot to discuss on today's show. You can email us flotrackpodcast@gmail.com. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever else you listen to audio podcasts. Or you can watch us, flotrack.org/FloTrack podcast. I'm in Austin. Lincoln, again, is in the Hype Shed in Taylor, Texas. How are you, Lincoln? Are those results and takes you have behind you there? Did they take the place of your wife's art after all these great results we got over the weekend?
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to understand them in my head a little bit better by throwing them up on the wall, kind of like Charlie Kelly and Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and understand how 4 people breaking one world record in one race is remotely possible. And just it's been tough to ingest all that from Valencia yesterday, so I've had to make some models and try to figure out the numbers exactly and understand exactly how perilous of a position we're in now, how ruined the sport is, and what we can do to possibly bring it back.
And sometimes numbers and words don't suffice, so then you just do an abstract approach and colors. You throw different colors up against the wall, and you're like, "This is Kibiwott Kandie. This is Alpha Fly. This is how I feel right now."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm close to uncovering the conspiracy, but stay tuned. There's a lot to talk about today. In all seriousness, I know we've gotten used to the preposterous, but 4 guys breaking 58. I'm sure I was on record last week, I think, saying I didn't think the record was going to go down. I think it's always safer to just assume records will fall these days rather than not, because not only did it fall by almost 30 seconds, but 3 other dudes got under it and made Jeffrey Kamworor's no good rotten year even tougher, because not only does he get hit by a car and can't race, and then obviously the slowdowns because of COVID, but his records go by the wayside without him even getting to offer a rebuttal. Now he'll have a chance eventually. I assume he'll be a sub 58 guy, but as of now, he's got 4 gentlemen ahead of him. And it's not like 58.01 was a weak record. It is by the if you compare it to the marathon, but still yet I'm astounded at the results from the Valencia men's half.
Yeah, so we're going to start there. We're going to do the top 10 storylines of the weekend, because this was like a real weekend in running. This was as if there was no pandemic, basically. And even probably in a non-pandemic year, this would have been a big weekend, just the amount of results. So with that Valencia half, you had Kibiwott Kandie, 57:32, smashes Kamworor's record by 29 seconds. And then 5 seconds behind him, Jacob Kiplimo, the reigning now world half marathon champion. And then Ronix Kipruto, 57:49. And then Alexander Mutisa, who nobody really had heard of going into this race, also went under 58 minutes and ran 57:59. You said before you didn't think it was a weak record. And it's hard to think when someone breaks the existing mark by as much as Kamworor did. He put some distance there. And when someone comes in with the credentials that Kamworor did to the event and seems perfectly suited for that event, that it is the end all be all, and this record is going to stay forever. But in retrospect, you look back, he ran a lot of that race by himself when he ran 58:01, and then you go to the tables. And I know you don't like to go to the tables all the time, but I like to go to the tables, and you look at how it matches up
I did yesterday.
To the marathon. Yeah, you go to the marathon, you go to the 5,000, 10,000 records, which Joshua Cheptegei just broke. And even after you punch in 57:32, it's still the weakest of the 4. A lot of that is just a function of how the half marathon is run. A lot of that is just because the half marathon is run as a tune-up. It's run as part of a larger plan, or it's run in a World Half Marathon Championships where there are medals at stake. So the shoes obviously are having an impact here, but I think we should also know that there's a confluence of things going on. And one of them was, I think this record was due to go down when you put that many people on that fast of a course.
Yeah, Valencia is just the record capital of the world when it comes to, well, I guess track times too, but when it comes to road running, I mean, just I think the money they can put behind events, particularly when there's been, no events to speak of, where normally a lot of these athletes would have been spread out running marathons, halves at different places. Well, now they could all come together, and then they get on to Valencia, which is just pancake flat. And it is a good factor. Yes, the shoes are a tremendous factor, but I'm always going to be off the train of this is ruining the sport, as a lot of people are discussing, because I look at it as like the pre-cell phone era, and now we're living in a cell phone era. Formerly you couldn't, when you were out in the woods and you were lost, you couldn't call your friends. And man, did that make life so much more interesting? And did it take away from the
Mapquest.com sponsor the show?
Yeah, it took away from the sincerity of being lost and being having to find a payphone. And I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it now. It's like, well, now we don't have to worry about that. Now the shoes are their best possible iteration that they've ever been. And that's fine if you don't want to compare it to previous eras. That's fine. I think we can all appreciate that Kibiwott Kandie has an advantage over, 10 years ago, Zersine Tedesse in the shoe department. And that's fine. Like, I don't need to compare these guys anymore. I want to compare Kibiwott Kandie to Jacob Kiplimo. So or even Jeffrey Kamworwor. And, Kamworwor now may be a step behind because the shoes have advanced in the, whatever it was, a year since he broke his record. Like, I'm fine with that. I don't need to worry. I'm done comparing records and times to previous eras. Let's just forget about that. Like, I don't think the shoes need to be a controversial thing, simply because let's just live in the here and now and understand that technology is always going to be part of it. I just don't understand why so many people are caught up in that. I don't want to waste this entire hour on just that. I do just want to marvel on the fact of the performance of the four guys yesterday running. I mean, in Kandie's case, running 4:24 pace for 13.1 miles. And I think we were both watching the race at the same time last night. I didn't watch it live as you didn't either, because I like to sleep. And just marveling at his aggressiveness. I think obviously there was pacers, but when he wanted to get things moving at 18K, he put in an aggressive surge to win that race. And I know Kiplimo caught up at 20K, but Kandie, you talk about being in control of the race and not letting it just come to you, but really stamping your foot down and going for it. That's exactly what Kandie did. And he gets a little revenge on Kiplimo. Both those guys are fantastic. I think that ultimately, one or two of them, we know that the half marathon success doesn't always translate, but one or two of these guys is going to be fantastic in the marathon at some point. And it's just fun. It was fun to watch. I mean, Kandie is he's not the prettiest runner, but he is like confident in what he's doing. And he's now the half marathon world record holder, and somebody we're going to have to consider for all road races going forward.
When you watched it, did you notice about 100, 200 meters in, they switched from a head-on shot to a side shot? Did you remember that? And you got a sense of how quickly they started, and it looked like a 1500. That's when I knew. I mean, I was watching it after the fact, so I saw the results, but that's when I knew it was ridiculous to be on. I mean, they took off with no fear of the distance at all. It was insane.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, that's the half marathon has long since been a speed race, right? I mean, everything's a speed race, but I'm still awestruck. I'm still awestruck. They're running in 420 miles for 13 miles. I mean, that's just absurd. Yeah. And so you do get a better perspective when they're from the side, as in any race. It looked like they were sprinting on the roads. It's just, it was nuts.
Yeah. So you mentioned how fast Valencia is, and I don't think that is being considered enough here. People are attributing a lot of it to the shoes, but I think some of the credit does need to go to Valencia, which is basically BU now without a roof. Every time there's a race there, you're seeing massive personal bests. And I heard this in the broadcast. They were talking about the 10K course that they had, which of course produced ridiculously fast times. And they smoothed out some of the curves to make it even faster for the half marathon. So they took, because that's where Ronix ran. How fast did Ronix run there, Lincoln? Remind the audience how fast he ran there.
Yeah, 26:24.
And they made it faster. He ran 26:24, and they made the course faster. So if people want to do conspiracy theories and things about ruining the sport, I don't know, maybe look at the city of Valencia or the course. That just seems to be where all the fast times are coming from. You can't help but notice two of these four guys who ran under 58 minutes were not sponsored by Nike, including the winner. So that talking point about it being an uneven playing field seems to be dissipating by the day. And now you're right, we've transitioned to era versus era, and the times don't mean anything anymore. And I take your point completely. I take your point 100% of, yeah, every era is going to have advantages. And then part of the fun in sports is comparing, okay, Kibiwott Kandie's mid 57 time versus somebody else. Oh, this person ran with all weather tracks and Jim Ryan ran on cinders. How do we compare that? Like, there's always going to be this evolution. Does this mark a much larger one? Yes, than one we've recently seen. But I think the key part is, can you make it fair within the era? So that way Adidas athletes and Nike athletes are on the same page. And, Ronix ran, when he ran that 26-24, I don't think he had the current shoe that he's running in now. That was the beginning of January. I don't think Adidas was that. I believe it was the Takumi Sens, which are not the same thing as the Adios. So the dude's running 26-24 on the road. If you didn't think a sub 58 was possible, if you didn't, you need to go to the library, check out. Oh, libraries aren't open, but when the library's open, check out a copy of the IAAF scoring tables, get them on reserve, and look at what 26-24 on the road charts out at. I mean, this was inevitable. And again, I'm not saying the shoes have nothing to do with it. Of course, you have to be completely blind to say that there's not some factor with the shoes here. But these guys were good. These guys are good, and they were going to run fast regardless. And Jeffrey Camore was not the end of PRs in the same way that on the track, Kenenisa Bekele was not the end of PRs. Chernish Dubaba was not the end of PRs in the women's 5,000. We have not reached the end. We do not need to think that just because we saw them, that was the pinnacle of athletic achievement, and everything that comes after them thereby does not count because they beat somebody we saw growing up who we thought had the perfect amount of technology. No more, no less.
Yeah, and the argument, as you know, is that the jumps are just so, if you look at this on a graph, we've been going a little steadily ticking up. And then in the last 5 years, it's gone straight north as far as so many people dropping so much time. And I don't know, maybe I'm just different than a lot of people. I'm just not bothered by that. I don't know what's necessarily wrong with that. Let's just change our, recalibrate our gauge of what we understand as fast. And then this is the world we live in. As you said, kind of jokingly, last night via text, like, I couldn't even watch this race. There's so many guys running fast. It was bothering me. I mean, that's kind of what we're arguing, right? It's like, you are so bothered, and I just still find it hilarious. And I'm sure he's okay with me calling him out because this is his response after every race. But one of the sport's most famous commentators always goes to Twitter after a very fast performance like this, Tim Hutchings, and complains about it. And I just like, Tim, are you trying to lose your job? Because I just, why is this bothering you so much? And I understand he represents a bygone era because he was an elite distance runner, but he's arguing like, when is World Athletics going to say, be like, somebody's going to step up and say enough is enough. Well, I've got news for him, which he knows they're not, because the other day, maybe it was yesterday, they just said their prototype rule, they banished that. So it's the Wild West again. So we're doubling down, World Athletics saying, no, your prototype doesn't have to be out in the public. You can just rip in a prototype. I mean, we may be talking eventually if we're trying to get the marathon or the half marathon closer to what the marathon is per the IAAF scoring tables. We may soon be talking about times in the 56-minute range. Is it going to be absurd? Sure. But like, why is that so bad? I just don't understand why the science with athlete progression running ridiculously fast is so bad. I think we have this sport where we just think everything needs to be compared to other eras, and I just don't know why. We can appreciate that Kenenisa Bekele was great on the track, and the fact that he was able in the mid 2000s to run times that are comparable or better than all but one person in history than a guy who has
Mm-hmm.
technological advantages. And I think we appreciate that and say, wow, he ran 26:17 in 2005. That probably translates to a sub 26 effort. It doesn't like make Kenenisa Bekele be like, wow, he was a bad runner. I mean, I know that's a little simplistic, but I thought this would calm down a little bit. And I know the comparison is people make as well, swimming got rid of the bodysuit. And
well, there were 25.
I disagree. I disagree with that. I think that was dumb.
Well, no, and that's kind of apples to oranges. There were 25 world records at the 2008 Olympics with the swimsuit. 25 world records. That's not what we're talking about here.
What's wrong with that? Why is that so bad?
But no, I'm saying it's on an order of magnitude much larger than what we're dealing with shoes or with lights or whatever. And people want it. Yes, the whole obsession with numbers is inherent to track and field in the same way it joins baseball in that party of the numbers are sacred. The numbers mean something. These records matter. But again, if you don't think somebody
half of them are dope, half of them are dirty.
Well, right.
What record does the women 800 mean something? The women's 4, does that mean something?
Yes, right. Exactly. I get your point. But I'm saying they're also neglecting the fact that did they think that the people in the 2000s had the same exact advantages as the people in the 1970s and the 1960s? Again, the drum, it wasn't as steep, but the end result is the same. And here's the other part of this, and this is what I was talking about, back a couple months ago when we were talking about the regulations for it. This stuff it's unavoidable when you have a sport that's funded by shoe companies and you have athletes that are funded by shoe companies, and the desire is to make a better shoe for people, not just one that makes them faster, but in the case of a lot of these carbon fiber shoes, people are saying that they recover quicker. So theoretically, hey, maybe they're going to be injured less and they're going to enjoy the sport of running. You can't put that genie back in the bottle because that's how the whole thing is. That's how the whole, the bread is buttered essentially here. This is how the sport goes round and round. Should you put some restrictions on it so it's clear and transparent for everybody? Yes. And I think they did that. Did they do that too late? Perhaps. But right now, when you have all the major companies now having at least some form of a carbon fiber shoe, to my knowledge, we're getting closer. We're getting closer to that. And Kibiwott Kandie is not the end of this. Someone else is going to – so if you don't like his record and you think it was done incorrectly, I'm not saying we're going to go back and people are going to run in non-carbon fiber shoes, but someone's going to break that record. And then someone's going to break that record. And it's just – that's just the reality of what's the sport right now. And then maybe shoe technology will settle down for 10, 20 years, right? And you'll see more modest improvements. Again, whatever they were running in the marathon in 1950s, 1960s is not what they were running in the marathon with Haile Gebrselassie. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. You could say, okay, there wasn't carbon in the shoe and carbon or the foam. That's the red line that we should draw. But there were improvements in the shoes that helped him run faster. I mean, anyway, let's go. We have 9 more storylines. We got to keep moving here.
Yeah.
So we have 9 more storylines. Number 2, excuse me. Let's go to the women's half in Valencia. Emily Sisson runs 67:26, misses the American record by 1 second in a race that Gonzebe Dababa won in her debut in 65:18. So Sisson right there just didn't quite get it. There was a little bit of a gap between her and the next person. Probably if she had some help along the way, you think she could have got it. But at the very least, we know she's in good shape heading into 2021.
Exactly. I'm sure this was, painful for her to miss out. Now she's missed out twice by an average of 3 seconds. When you go back to Houston and was that whatever that was? Yeah. Was that the beginning? I forget what year. Was it the beginning of this year or no? It was 2019. It's hard to remember. But
we're in 2020 right now. That's all I know.
Is that the year we're still in? Okay, it's been a long one. In any case, she's missed out twice on very close to Molly Huddle's record. Maybe, I don't know. Is Huddle like she's training with her? Is she like gaming her a little bit?
I'll get you fast.
Like, man, that record's there for the taking. You should probably get that record. I mean, you're good enough to get psyching her out. No, I'm just kidding. This is just more confirmation that she's I mean, she's fantastic at the 10K and half marathon distance, and she can be good at the marathon. It didn't work out for her in Atlanta, but she is still one of the favorites to get a spot in the women's 10K team coming up next summer, I should say, when now things are going to be, I guess, a lot more competitive. But let's remember, she's run 30:49, and obviously is really probably the best half marathoner in the country right now. So I think you only take away positives from that. A good result for her, to kind of end the year on a high note after a little bit of tough pill to swallow in Atlanta. Yeah, I expect her once again to be an Olympian on the track and could really get a medal, probably not, but I mean, really do something special, I think, this time around when she's, I think, 29 now. I mean, she'll be like peaking, hopefully, when she goes to Tokyo and being the best version of herself. And I think you could see something special, maybe a top 5 finish.
Yeah. Dibaba, 65:18. Kind of makes sense that Dibaba would be good in the half marathon.
She's like she's transitioned into she's like Sifan Hassan light at this point in her career. I don't see her becoming a marathoner, but good on her. She was Sifan Hassan before Sifan Hassan was around, and then Sifan Hassan transcended, and Dibaba is just so hit and miss. This was a hit. Good for her. I just don't know what is it? How do we extrapolate this? Is she going to be in the 10? At the Olympics? Is she going to make the Olympic team? It just all depends on health and where. She's just kind of a mystery at this point in her career, and you can't really rely on much. But this was a good race for her, and it's just unfortunately, I just knowing typically we don't see people the 1,500 meter world record holder go up and take to the marathon. So I feel like this was somebody that was like, I'm relying on my 5K speed and all that experience, and I'm going to be good at the half. But I don't want to overlook this time. I mean, 65:15 is fantastic. I just don't know what exactly we take from it for somebody like Nzebe Dibaba.
Yeah, and Gade was not in the race. She was a late scratch, which was too bad because it would have been fun to see those two go at it. Okay, you mentioned Sisson and the 10,000. That event got a lot more interesting over the weekend at the track meet where 8 women, 6 U.S., got the standard, led by Rachel Schneider, who ran 31:09 in her debut. So going into this meet, Merrill Hall, Emily Sisson, and Huddle had the standard, and now you throw in a bunch more there. Wayne Kaladi was second in her pro debut, 31:10, which would have been the collegiate record if she didn't go pro a couple weeks ago. And Alicia Monson, 31:10. Then Sharon Lucchetti, 31:11. Rogers, 31:12. Kellen Taylor, 31:15. Danielle Shanahan, huge PR, 31:22. And Steph Bruce, 31:24. All went under the Olympic standard.
Yeah, impressive stuff from Schneider. And I think you're going to see, as far as the Americans are concerned, a lot of people wanting to gravitate towards this 10,000 just simply because if you look at the 5, now we don't know what Houlihan's going to do, but if she, if she's in the 5,000, she's likely going to win it. And if she wants to run that distance, there's 2 spots gone when you put her and Schweizer. So I think people are going to say, well, the 10,000 is much more up in the air. And I think Schneider really has to consider putting all her eggs in. I mean, not all, obviously you run the 5 too, but this was a heck of a debut, and beating Wayne Kaladi, no small feat, even though she's just coming off a collegiate career. I mean, I think Rachel Schneider is really underrated in the U.S. simply because previously she's run the 5 where women ahead of her like Houlihan, Schweizer, and El Purrier. And I think this was kind of her moment to shine a little bit and show that, she's got a real shot. If she keeps improving, she'll be, somebody who's going to be running under 31 minutes. And that's kind of what it takes right now when you look at the fact that Huddle and Sisson have both done that. And I'm sure, Infeld, if she's healthy, is capable of that. So this was just a fantastic debut for her. And now we have to consider her for this 10,000 meter distance.
It's the right move to put yourself in 2 events, especially how competitive it is. And the 10,000 comes first. So now she's got that option as well as the 5. And I like her in this distance. The The 3 that already have the standard will be a factor. You mentioned Endveld. She could be in there. All the other qualifiers are there, but you want to avoid the 5. Even if Houlihan doesn't run it, you want to avoid it because of Schweizer. You want to avoid it because of Cranny. You want to avoid it because of Purrier. You want to avoid it because of Shannon Rowberry. Potentially Jenny Simpson could run the 5 as well too. There's just a lot of people. You want to be one and done at USA's at the trials. You want to run one, get your ticket, and then leave. The 5,000 was ho hum by comparison. Houlihan cruised 15:02, Cranny 15:04. It makes sense that it looks like a tempo run because she's run 14:20s before, but this looks so easy for Houlihan.
Well, and when Gordon and I were previewing this meet on Friday, we were talking about, well, why is she even here? And I had forgot the absurdity of the fact that World Athletics said you can't get the standard. So despite the fact that she had run 14:23, she had to go get the standard at this meet. And it was just a day at the office for her and Cranny. This race went entirely as expected. Not much more to add other than Shelby Houlihan has the standard. I guess you look at her having the standard as, feeling the need to get it out of the way this early is maybe a sign that she's seriously considering the 5, or she's just doing what everyone does and giving themselves options. And that's probably the more likely situation. Just, I have options. So,
well, Schweizer didn't run it though, which is interesting. I don't know if she just wasn't ready to race, but when you look at it, would you rather be Shelby or Schweizer after this weekend? You'd probably say, well, I'd rather be Shelby just because that's one less thing she has to do next year. Yeah. And maybe it's because she's going to be focusing on the 1500 next year. So she needs to knock out that time, where Schweizer more focused just on the 5. So she'll have plenty of opportunities. The 10 though is where it's at, because the 10, you don't have a lot of chances. You got Stanford. You don't know what's going to happen with those races there. So how many opportunities really are there for Americans to get the time? So the fact that there's already, what do we have, 8 now? No, well, how many U.S. women have the standard now? There was 6.
Well, how many got it? 7 got it. So it'd be, I don't know.
6 U.S.
It's like 10.
6 U.S. got it.
Oh, is it only 6?
Yeah.
My bad.
6 U.S. and then 3 already had it, I think. So that's just going to make a better trials race. That's going to make a better trials race when you have 10, 11, 12 people with the standard, as opposed to 4, and then one of them drops out, and you're like, okay, well, this isn't an interesting race anymore.
Well, I think I think they're going to break 31:25 in the trials too. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. I remember that Amy Yoder-Begley year where she had to, get top 3 and obviously get the standard, and she did it in both, and it was really exciting. But I don't want to pay attention to the time at trials. I want to just watch the race. I told you, times have ruined the sport for me. When people run fast, it's like, I didn't sign up to watch track to see people run fast. I signed up to watch track to watch people run exactly as fast as they did 25 years ago, maybe slightly slower. But absolutely under no circumstances are they allowed to run fast. That's not why I watch track. Men's 10,000, our 4th storyline, Eric Jenkins.
He's back.
Does he make the leap here? Does he make the leap?
I think he does. I think he makes the leap a year too late to the 10,000. I know he's had some injury struggles. But man, the dude, what's that?
Just in time. I think he made it just in time. I don't think he's late. I think he made it just in time.
Just in time. Okay, so 27-22. The amount of dudes in the 27-20s certainly surprised me. Yeah, this is him being back, and 10,000 on the men's side, maybe not quite as tough on the women as it is on the women's side, but he's going to have Lopez Lamong to contend with. He's going to have Shadrach Kipchirchir to deal with, but like it is in the women's 5, much easier team to make on paper than the 5,000. So this was a strong move from him, and obviously he can get even better at this. And so if he can stay healthy, his chances of becoming an Olympian just went up about 40%. So good on him for doing that. Because I tend to think the men's standard is significantly tougher than the women's, and for this many dudes to get that, some guys here took massive leaps towards becoming Olympians here, and we'll talk about some of the other guys, but Jenkins the same. And it kind of had his he was a forgotten guy a little bit just because of the injuries, and now that's not necessarily the case. I know he made the team in 17, but just the injury struggles have now we talk about Chalimo and Kincaid and Lamong, and you're like, oh yeah, there's still, Eric Jenkins run like 13:05, but he just hasn't been around enough. Well, now he's back.
Yeah, well, and he'd run good 10Ks in college as well too, but you really thought of him more as a 5,000 after 2016. Pat Tiernan was second. Aussie record for him, breaks Stuart McSwain's mark. Ches was third, 27:23 PB for him. And then Sam Atkin runs 27:26 while also rabbiting this race, and a day after he ran a 5K in 13:18. That's a backwards way to do the 5K, 10K double. Usually you get that 10K out of the way first, and then you go and run the 5,000. So probably a lot of ice after that race for Sam Atkin.
Kidding.
And then Joe Klecker, 27:35 in his debut, and then Wesley Kiptoo, perhaps the cross-country favorite. I don't know. There's a guy in the 5K who ran pretty fast too. Kiptoo ran 27:37 there. Oh, and Robert Brandt got 8th. You always got to mention that.
As Gordon.
Robert Brandt.
Yeah, as Gordon did nail that one in the head. He said Robert Brandt always gets 8th, and by God, he got 8th place. What a prop. What a prop bet there for Gordon. I will say I beat him in our little bet, our draft. Guys that came through for me. Yeah, Ches came through, Klecker came through, Kiptoo came through. Even in the back, my back guys, Frank Lara came through. Germa, I think, was in 11th or something like that. So, I just picked up a lot of junkyard dogs there. Who did not come through?
Yeah, name some names of people who disappointed you in this race.
Oh, right. No, I don't think anybody. I picked Hillary Bohr. That was a bit of a flyer. He came through for me. I think he was like 10th. I mean, he's a steepler. All my guys, I think, broke 28 minutes. So I was happy with my team.
Okay, good job.
Our Zoom meeting is going to be
GM.
really exciting. Yeah, we're gonna have a celebratory Zoom meeting after this. No, those guys have no idea. Kiptoo versus Grijalva is going to be a fun one to watch. I am so excited for that. For Kiptoo, I did say, not to keep patting myself on the back, but I'll go ahead and do it. I thought he could run in the 27:30s. That's exactly what he did. He has a couple years left in college. This is exciting. It's going to be fun to watch him. But Grijalva just continuing to put it to everybody on his 2020 revenge tour, winning that 5,000. The times weren't what they wanted, but for him, this is his wrecking ball is still smashing everything and anything and everything in his way.
Yeah, and that's the number 5 story, that men's 5,000. I do like the Luis Grijalva revenge tour topic, because ordinarily you see the best revenge tours are the people who miss the Olympic team, and they just go over to Europe and run angry for a couple months and get PRs and win Diamond Leagues and beat people who are on the team. Not just Americans. It happens in Kenya as well too. But this is what Grijalva is doing. Now, he didn't miss any teams. He just didn't get a chance to run in track, which was supposed to avenge his cross-country performance. But 13-16 breaks his own Guatemalan national record there. Beats Cooper Tier, a collegiate rival who ran a great race. And I'll give you credit because you've been high on Cooper Tier for a couple of years now. He's your new Grant Fisher, I guess, of guy you pick in every single race. And then Drew Hunter in there in third. So this twice in the span of a couple of weeks where Grijalva's managed to outkick Drew Hunter. So I don't know Grijalva's intentions for the future about which country, like who he wants to represent. But if he gets under 13-15, he could. I'm guessing there's no obstacle to him competing for Guatemala in the Olympics.
Well, 13.5. That's the standard, right?
I thought it was 13-15. Am I wrong? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're the standard.
Yeah, it's 13. I think it's almost certain it's 13.5.
Oh, the race was paced to 13-15. That's right.
Yeah.
The race was paced to 13.
I was a little off a second.
Yeah, I was a little upset that they went. They seemed cautious towards the beginning. There was some gap. There was a gap between them and the rabbit. It's like, go get the time.
Yeah,
get the mark. I'm not.
Well, you had a lot of guys.
A young guy.
Yeah, you just had a lot of guys who had not run under 13:20 before, so I think it was a little bit of a scary leap. But if you're there, if you're saying you're going to try to run under 13:15, do it. Easier said than done, clearly, but. I think if this was paced a little bit differently, if they were to do this again, they could see the error in their ways to where, yes, it was an exciting race, but how much nicer would it have been to have the standard, and you do all that and you still don't get the mark. It's certainly bittersweet, but to the larger point in the NCAA, to the people who are still in it, because everybody and their brother's currently going pro, Grijalva and Kiptu, and I guess you can throw Mance in there. He wasn't here, but it is funny how the NCAA replenishes itself, right? It's people step up and there's transfers and new guys that are there, and you think, oh no, we've lost this. Edwin Kurgat's gone. Well, we may have a better version of him here, and Joe Klecker's gone. Well, guess what? Luis Grijalva is a better version of him, at least in this stage of his career. It's remarkable, and it is. Yeah. We have no idea what cross country is going to look like, other than the March 15th NCAA championships, which will hopefully still happen. But we're setting ourselves up for a very fun little truncated season, particularly when those two guys match up. I doubt we've ever had a matchup between a 13-16 guy and a 27-37 guy in cross country. So this will be fun to watch.
Well, it helps when you put the track season.
Yeah, in the middle of cross country season.
Yeah. You get all sorts of quirky results there. Let's go to the second fastest heat, the B heat. There, big victory for undershirts. That's my headline.
Yeah, was it chilly for Centro? Was he just wanting to flash the Jordan logo? It was. I'm going to go on record saying I'm not really a fan of the look. I mean, he gets away with it because he's the Olympic champion and one of the all-time American greats in the 1500, and pretty good 5,000 meter runner as well. I wasn't a fan of the look. However, he did win this heat. Would have preferred to see him in the 13-15 race. I guess it was just a rust buster, but yeah, I guess he really. We may start to see more undershirts. Maybe he's trying to bring back the Steve Prefontaine look, if you will. I wasn't a fan of the outfit, but he makes it look good, I suppose.
He's a big fan of the 70s and the 80s too. Maybe he likes the times from the bygone era there. I think it's so funny watching him run a 5,000 because he looks like he is walking around the track, just how efficient his stride is. Yeah, it would have been fun to see him in the fast heat. As is, he outkicks Cole Hawker of Oregon, who ran 13:32.95. So 3/100 separate them. KZ Klinger was 8th, keeping your eye on those NCAA guys. He was 8th in 13:41. And then Nico Young did not break 13:30, as I predicted he would by the end of the year. But you know what? He's got a couple months. I said by the end of his freshman year. He's still got a couple months to drop 15 seconds. He ran 13:44. He was towards the back the whole time. And I think being towards the back, if the race actually went out, at sub 13:30 pace as it was supposed to, or right at 13:30 pace, would have made more sense. But it lagged a bit there, and it took the Central close to get them just to 13:32. So some valuable experience. Yeah. He raced in the jersey. NAU raced in their jerseys, which I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because I don't think did anybody else do that.
BYU didn't.
Okay. I was impressed by Nico Young, to be honest. I thought this, coming off that 8:10 with disappointment. Yeah, I thought this was a good effort for him. He's in the business right now hitting singles and to be a piece for NAU in March. And this was definitely a hard single up the middle. I was really, really impressed with Cole Hawker from Oregon running 13:32. This will be, I guess, his sophomore year. You kind of forget because he wasn't an All-American as a true freshman at Oregon in cross country, but and then he got only a limited track season and no outdoor season. Obviously, you forget that. Oh yeah, this is a guy who won Foot Locker and whatever it was, 2018, and was a superstar in high school. And we kind of focus on Nico Young, and maybe other people in the NCAA. But you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be a future superstar as well. And you just kind of because Tiers at Oregon, and he's been much better than all of his teammates. Hawker, I think, had been overlooked, and he's going to be somebody who's going to be a force to be reckoned with for the Ducks, I think, in coming years.
Well, look at their performances this past weekend. You have a 13:17 in Tier and then a 13:32 right there for Hawker. So do not sleep on Oregon, because if I know Oregon, they also have 8 other guys who run between 358 and 356 in the mile, and some of them will be decent in cross country, and then you'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep it moving. 7, story number 7, 4 guys. This is crazy that this is the 7th biggest story, but 4 guys broke 204 in the Valencia full. I put this 7 because when you and I were talking about this, I think I said 4 guys would break 203, or I said there would be a lot of guys in the 202s here. Didn't quite get it. Evans Chibet ran 203 flat. Lawrence Chirono saw his 3 marathon win streak. I know you had been keeping tabs on that. You had the last time Lawrence Chirono lost a marathon stat up there.
Clock in my bedroom.
Yeah. Like the Cubs were 6 games above 500 the last time Lawrence Chirono lost a marathon. All sorts of crazy stats. The price of gas. Berhanu Legesse, who came in as the number 1 seed, ran 203.16, and Amos Kipruchu ran 203.30. I don't have anything else to add other than Evans Chibet also was wearing Adidas. So don't get mad at Nike on this one, guys.
Yeah. No, we got to direct your anger at 2 different Portland-based brands here. 2 minutes off his PR. This was an eye popper for me from Chibet, because I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really know anything about Evans Chibet before this race, and there's a chance we may not need to know anything beyond this performance. This could be his career high point, and that would be fine. My takeaway was, can we get Eliud Kipchoge an invitation to the Valencia Marathon at some point? Because, dear Lord, if Evans Chibet is running 203, Eliud Kipchoge is going to run like 158. I mean, maybe not that fast, but
yeah, I mean, he beat some names though. He beat some names.
It is tough. Toronto's not, but I mean, Evans Chibet is running 203 flat. Let's get some real dudes in here in this Valencia race, and we're going to see.
Toronto's a real dude.
He's a real dude. Look, but what Evan? Have you heard of Evans Chibet before this? I had not heard of Evans Chibet.
I'm going to be honest. I've heard of Wilson Chibet, but Evans Chibet had been around. He'd run a lot of marathons. You're right. 205 was his PR. But here's what I was telling you about last week when we were previewing this thing. And this is what I don't think you understand about marathon running, Lincoln. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that.
I mean, I know nothing.
You put some some like really, really, really good people, right? Top 10 in the world type people in this field, such as Berhanu Legesse and Lawrence Chirono. And then you mix them in with 10 Evans Chibet type people who have run, 204 mid, maybe to 205 high, and you get going real quick. The odds of one of them having the race of their life is pretty good. Now, most of them are going to go out the back and fall apart and not run very fast, just like we see every year in Dubai. But it doesn't surprise me that when you have that big of a pool of people to choose from, that one of them is just going to have their day, and they're going to take advantage of the weather and the course and everything, and they'll be good to go. So you're right. Unheralded result. But it was just going to be, if it wasn't him, it was going to be somebody else.
What is it? What is the saying? It's like rising tides lift all boats or something like that. Mm-hmm. That kind of feels like what you're describing there is like.
Yeah. But it sinks a lot of other boats too in distance running.
It does.
In distance running, it also, people go out and they fall apart. But
they do. For Evans Chibet, it was his day. Don't know beyond this if they'll look at him for the Kenyan team. They've already named their team. Will they go back? Is Kipchoge
no.
Is Kipchoge on the block?
No, stop.
I mean,
stop.
They looking to trade Kipchoge?
No. Chirono should be on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Chirono should be on the team. He's
I agree.
Okay. Number 8. You probably didn't notice because this happened on Saturday morning. The athlete of the year for the men, Manu Duplantis. For the women, Yulimar Rojas gets it. But one of the other nominees, Perez Jepchirchir, mere hours later fires back with a 2:17.16 marathon, the 5th fastest time in history. Maybe they should have waited another week. I don't know. What do you think?
Or maybe just waited until December 31st. Can we just actually complete a year before we name a team? Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think Yulimar Rojas hasn't competed since August, which is fine in the sense of that, I guess September 5th, during the pandemic, you can't blame her for lack of competing. But I think, her quote was something to the effect of I'm completely stunned to have won this. And we always knew, always thought that road racers were going to be in an advantage because there was just more competitions for them, especially if you thought World Athletics would consider, kind of have recency bias, but I guess they didn't. But this is, I think they need to amend the way they do this. If somebody like Paris Cheer is going to break the women's only world record, win the world half, and then run the 5th fastest marathon of all time for a woman, and she gets beat by somebody who, set a
indoor world record
indoors, but I mean, I don't think we can compare that to, what Jep Cheer has done. And when in her outdoor season, yes, she won her competitions. This is Rojas, but she was jumping like at one point a meter less than her world record, and then another time, more than half a meter behind it. It's absurd that Yulimar Rojas won this award, and I think she would say the same thing. Obviously, the men, they made the right choice, but this was a complete screw up on epic proportions. Obviously, Jep Cheer has won a whole bunch of money, and I'm sure she's fine with it. But if we don't recognize this year that they need to change the way they do this, then I don't know what we're doing, because this was a miscarriage of, I don't know what you want to call it, of voting and
track and field. Yeah, listen. Before the Valencia Marathon, Perez Jep Cheer should have been the women's athlete of the year.
Yeah,
it should have been her. And if it wasn't her, it probably should have been Letensepet Gide or Abibel Yeshina. You could have gone pretty far down on the list before you hit Rojas. And then after she ran in Valencia, then her season became not just 2020 good, but it would have been good in any year by any standard.
Right.
You could have said, hey, she should have been a finalist even if everybody was competing and we saw the regular circuit of meets. Because you're right, she would have had the women's only world record twice. She had the world half title, and she would have had this 2:17, number 5 all time in the marathon. That is a good season by any indication. I have no idea how they arrived at this. This is completely bonkers.
Absurd.
If you're gonna pick somebody who broke a world record and didn't race that much, the answer is Letensepet Gide on the track. If you're going to pick somebody who had the most complete season, you're going to pick Perez Jep Cheer. There's no scenario where she gets this.
Yeah. Let me go back and look at what Jep Cheer has done. I feel like one very foggy way that they could have looked at this, and this is not a good way to do it, was to say, okay, who broke a world record and who was the only world record breaker to not lose this season? Well, that was Yulimar Rojas, because technically Perez Jep Cheer lost in a all-important cross-country race in January, getting second.
Stop.
That's the only logic. There's no other logic here. There's no other logic, because it's not like, her 15:43 jump in February wasn't like the all conditions record. It wasn't better than the outdoor mark or anything like that. There is no logic here. The only other half-baked idea you could think of was, well, a lot of people are going to choose a distance runner. They're going to be critical of shoe check technology. They're going to say that aided in them. So let's remove shoe technology from this and give it to a jumper. Because in any other way, it's just absurd. Or you think somebody got paid off. Like I'm not actually proposing that. That's a joke. But this is outrageous.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We could do that for another 10 minutes if need be. Got 2 more stories to hit on. Some big names struggling in that same marathon. Lincoln Jordan Hesse ran 2:33. And then also in the track meet 10,000, we saw Gwen Jorgensen, Bowerman Track Club, run 32:12 for 17th. Let's start first with Hesse. I thought she could run 2:25 given how fast the course was, given the fact that it seemed like she was in better shape because she decided to sign up for the race. I probably did not read enough into that half marathon after I scolded you for reading a lot into that half marathon. You've been right. You've been right about things. Enjoy your week of correct takes. I hope Wade Van Niekerk catches you on a different week, because you've been right recently, and it's kind of weird. It's kind of scary. It's kind of scary that you've been right.
It's new. I'm not sure what to do with it, to be honest. I feel in this just sense of gratitude.
You'll always have the first week of December. You'll always have it.
Yeah, 2020. She went out in 74 minutes, so maybe there was some thought, we talked about the golf analogy, put it down the fairway. Maybe there was some thought of negative splitting, but in reality, she came home in 79 minutes. So there was always a plan, like a conservative plan. This was never going to be I don't think this was ever an attempt to run close to a PB, even though you would have thought her presence in Valencia with how fast it was going to go, may have read on paper of, oh, maybe she's in PR shape somehow. It has been, 9-10 months since the trials. So perhaps that she was ready to do this. Well, that just was never going to be the case. I think this was just all about, let's find a marathon and get back on track, because, I think if you take what she did at the half running 74, maybe she thought she could come back in 72 and run 226, and that would be an okay race. But, I just have to wonder, is she still not physically there? Or is there a mental component to this? Because if she is healthy, there's no reason why someone who's run 220 should be running 233. Unless she's gotten in the back of her head that her recent struggles have really, really affected her. Because you just would think someone of her caliber, who knows what she's capable of, wouldn't run a full marathon if they weren't fully healthy. So that leads me to think that there's some factors going on inside the head that she's just not entirely comfortable when she gets out there. And, perhaps she's, I don't know how to put this delicately, but kind of psyching herself out, and has the injury in Chicago coupled with the really tough one in Atlanta has done some damage to her psyche, where she's going to have a long road to get back to believing that she's an elite athlete. Because 233, I mean, this is 12, 13 minutes off her PB. This is like Eliud Kipchoge getting out there and running a 210 or something. You're just there's no logic to it if the athlete is healthy. And so I suppose you could think she's not healthy, but I just would have a hard time believing that she would be out there in a race that isn't a do or die. She didn't have to be at this race. I have a hard time believing that she was unhealthy. I just think she's dealing with some stuff from past races that she's going to have to shake to get back to her previous levels.
And she has time, which is why I'm not giving up on it yet, because literally she has until next fall for the next consequential race at her distance, the marathon, because there are not any spring marathons. Now, she could run another stuff sooner if she wanted to, and maybe there'll be some road races she can hop in at shorter distances to help build up the confidence. But she can start from scratch, build it back up from square one, and in the next 9 months, get ready to get to a starting line again. So because of the way the marathon breaks this year, it allows for this sort of thing. She didn't qualify for the Olympics. It's not like she has to get right by the summer. There's no spring marathon, so she's not running in Boston. She's not running in London, so she can just take her time to get back. As for Jorgensen, that time surprised me a bit. I thought she was going to be, and I don't know how training's been going, because we saw them, this summer in those BTC time trials. But she's run faster than that before. Her teammate Vanessa Frazier ran a little bit quicker, 32:09. She's had major surgery, so she's kind of a TBD. Frazier, and I think she could be a factor in the 10K. And I think going, as we mentioned before, going the 10K route is smart, or at least having the 10K option in addition to the 5K is smart because of how good the 5K is. So Frazier, you want to give more time to. Jorgensen, though, I mean, she's in a position where, as you mentioned, you got to be sub 31 now to make the team, it feels like. Correct?
Yeah. We all, I think, thought in the distance community that this was going to be a tough go for her when she decided to come over first to the marathon and then now to the track. The thing is, I'm sure she's quite frustrated with this, frustrated with the way the last 2 years have gone for her. But she was always playing with house money. She's the Olympic triathlon champion. Like, her career has already been a major success, even if she never does anything more on the track. Yeah, it's been a disappointment and even more underwhelming than I think most people thought, especially when she kind of started her track career and was running fast indoors and, running like 15:15. she may have kind of missed her prime on the track and had been doing the triathlon during when she would have been her best on the track or on the roads. Again, she may not look at it this way, but her career has already been a tremendous success. And so even if she fails at this, well, she gave it a shot. Yeah, she's well off the back now of what needs to be done to make the team. Not to mention she's not going to have. She missed the standard by a substantial amount, so maybe she can get it figured out. But I don't think she's ever going to be a factor, which is nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. Name me another triathlete that hop on the track and be.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. You're 100%
That was always
right.
gonna.
I think. No, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't really think I had anything more else to add. You're just not going to see a triathlon. It was always ambitious for her to come on and be competitive with people who have been specializing, and I think she has learned, unfortunately, the hard way of how difficult it is to just mix it up with the very best distance runners in not just the world, but her own country.
All right, let's close out here. Number 10. This was the first big result we got from last week. Some fast times in Japan. We saw Hitomi Naya set the Japanese record, the women's 10,000, 30:20. And we saw Akira Aizawa run 27:18 for the men's 10,000, set the national record. And then two other gentlemen went under 27:30. Tatsuhiko Ito and Kazuki Tamura went under 27:30. I just wanted to end this pod with a reference to the country where everybody will be headed next year for the Olympics, Japan.
These are some good performances by some young dudes. I mean, if we had a guy that was 23 running 27:18, we would be jumping for joy here in the United States. Poor Kazuki Tamura running 27:28, missing the standard by 0.9 or less than a second. And then on the women's side, Naya, I forget exactly what else she has done. I think she won the Houston half way back, and I could be wrong here, but
you do not remember when the Houston half took place. I love it. That's one common thread of the show.
January, February, one of those. Hold on. What did she do? Yeah, she won Houston way back in January 19th. That's been almost a year ago, literally, and then figuratively about 5 years ago. So, she's also run 14:55, but obviously this 30:20 is probably the best performance of any. It's been a pretty good year on the track for a 32-year-old. 30:20 is no small matter. That, did she run in Doha? I gotta. Yeah, she got 11th in Doha. I think she's gonna be positioned to be much better in Tokyo when the Olympics come home than finishing 11th.
As always, if you need information for Japanese media, contact my colleague Lincoln Shrike, who's been interviewed not once but twice by Japanese media throughout.
That's right.
Career. Yeah. Usually commenting on the exploits of one Abdul Hakim Sonny Brown.
Yeah, and I've done some race walk analysis as well. So it's just padding the resume.
Basically, what I'm saying is when we go to Tokyo next year, it's going to be tough to walk around without Lincoln getting noticed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I look forward to it. But I'm famous not just here in the U.S. but abroad. It's people really like this new hat, this Bass Pro Shops hat I'm wearing. I think it makes me real popular.
Corporate synergy. FloTrack podcast at gmail.com. Write in. Let us know. Are you in the same boat as Lincoln and you think that fast times are ruining the sport? Let us know. FloTrack podcast at gmail.com.
Then if that's the case, you think cell phones are ruining communication. We talk too much now. We're too connected.
I agree. Gordon and I will be back tomorrow. Who knows what we'll talk about, because we got a lot of stuff covered today, but we got an exciting week planned. We got a guest coming midweek. Thank you to Alon for producing. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.